What's up, everybody? Welcome to the up-to-date version of the TnS Indicator guide. In this video, I'll be going over all the new features added to the indicator, what they mean, how they work, and which settings are the best that I recommend. Shout out to OutofOptions for creating this indicator for me and giving it to everyone for free. So yeah, let's just jump right into it. So to start, the first thing you want to do is go on TradingView and click this Indicators tab and type in TnS. Now for you, you'll most likely see something like this where it says community. You want to find the one that says from OutofOptions and click it. Maybe you might see something. Right now there's really no setups here. I'm on the 1 minute time frame. But right now it's going to look something like this for you. Maybe there's a table there, maybe there's not. But just to jump right into it, the first thing I want to get out of the way is the table, because a lot of people will be instantly complaining about how the table looks too small. So to make it bigger, you would want to do something like this. You scroll all the way down to the very bottom of the indicator where it says info table. Text size small, you want to change that to what I recommend is large. It's the best one in my opinion. So just to show you what it would look like, let's just back up to where there was a setup. You can see there's a short, and when we tap into this short, it's going to go away. So you can see it goes away. Now you may be wondering, well, Plyo, why did it go away? Well, that's actually one of the new features. So before I get into why it went away, let's first talk about what this means here at the top. Okay, so by default, your TnS indicator is going to look like this. It says stop loss points 35, FEG edge offset 3. Do not change that. Okay, that is the 5-minute TnS settings for stop loss and edge offset. Okay, I'm not going to explain what that means, but just make sure do not change this. Okay, the 1 minute preset option. If you're trading the 1 minute TnS, you want to have this checked. What it's going to do is it's going to automatically change your stop loss, edge offset, and version 2 mode to what I recommend for the 1 minute TnS. Okay, basically it's going to change your stop loss to 25, edge offset to 3, and it's going to have the version 2 mode checked. Now, once again, you won't be able to click anything here once you have this preset checked. Just know that it automatically does it for you. Don't worry, it is already on version 2 mode. You don't have to do anything here. As long as you have the preset checked, that is it working. So once again, while you're on the 1 minute, make sure it's checked. When you're on the 5 minute, it's going to still be there. There may be setups. For example, if I go back to here, there's definitely a setup here, but I'm still on the 1 minute TnS stop loss. Okay, when you're on the 5 minute, once again, this is the 5 minute time frame. It's showing me the setup. However, it's using the wrong stop loss. You can see the risk to reward. It says 1.1 R for 28 points. That's using the 25 point stop with the 1 minute preset. That's not what you're supposed to do. If you're on the 5 minute TnS, you want to have that unchecked by default. It's going to show you potential setups. Now you may be wondering, well, Plyo, what happened to that other entry there? That's going to lead us into the next feature of this, which is the minimum risk to reward feature. Okay. So before we would just have a one thing here, one button where it says filter weak stop loss setups. If you have this checked, it's basically going to show you only trades that have 1R or higher. Okay. But the new update allows you to customize this. Okay, so if you have this unchecked, and you can change this to 0.25, for example, it's going to now show me this higher entry up here. You can see it is for 0.8R, which means it's going to show me any setups that have 0.25R or more. And it moves in increments of basically 0.25. So 0.5, 0.75. Now, say, for example, there's a setup that had a TP for 0.6R and I have this at 0.7, it would not show me that setup. And that's why it's very useful, because you can change this to whatever you want, however much risk to reward you really want. Say, for example, maybe you don't even like 1R, maybe you want 1.2R. Well, guess what? That setup now is not going to show, because the TP for it is for 1.1R, actually 1.21R, and if you change it to 1.25, it's no longer there. But it is a very useful feature for people who don't want to take negative R setups. Now you can customize it. So now moving on to the next feature, the session filter. Basically what this does is it shows you TnS setups from 9:30 to 4 o'clock. Okay, This is in military time. That's why it says 1600 hours, but it's basically 4 o'clock. Okay. And that is what I recommend for TnS. I recommend everyone to trade it from 9:30 to 4 o'clock. That's what I recommend. By default, it's going to be disabled. But if you change this to FEG formation, this basically will keep all the setups there from 9:30 to 4 o'clock. If you change this to FEG validation, it's going to show you all the setups from 9:30 to 4 o'clock as well, except it's going to only show you them as the FEG is actually formed. What that means is, for example, as we're moving up like this, before this candle actually closes, it's going to try to show you the entries here, which I don't really recommend. So by default, I recommend to have this on validation or just keep it off in general. But if you really want it to be on, make sure you have it on validation. That's what I recommend. But me personally, I have it disabled. So now moving on to the alerts section. The alerts actually got an update as well, but it's the same way to actually turn it on. So to turn on alerts for TnS, right now I'm on the 5-minute. Say I wanted 5-minute alerts. The first thing that you want to do is you want to check this box. Do not change anything in here. Please do not change anything in here. That's going to mess it up. All you have to do is check this box, press OK, and then you want to find your TnS indicator on the top left hand side. You press these 3 dots, and it should say add alert to chart. Right now I'm in replay mode. That's why it won't let me do it. So let me exit out of replay mode. You press these 3 dots, and you can see now it shows add alert on TnS, or you can press Alt A as a shortcut. So you press this, and this little window will come up. Okay, do not change anything here unless you want to manually change whatever chart you're about to be on. What I mean by that is right now it says same as chart, which means I was on the 5-minute chart. I want to see 5-minute alerts, so it's going to say same as chart. Say maybe you're on the 5-minute, but you really wanted to show the 1-minute alerts instead. Maybe by accident you're on the 5-minute chart, but you really want 1-minute alerts. You could change this to 1 minute. It's going to show you the 1-minute alerts. But for what we want is the same chart. So you're going to keep that as same as chart. Remember, you don't have to touch this. And we'll give it a custom message. So instead of it having this weird like string of code as the alert, I'm going to simply select all of this and type in 5-minute TnS. Okay, and what this does is it's going to rename our alert so that we know exactly that it's the 5-minute TnS giving us an alert. And when there is a setup, it's going to send you an alert saying, okay, the entry is here, the stop loss is here, the TP is there. And to know that the alerts are on, you're going to see this little green alarm clock icon. And to double check that it's working, you can go to your right hand side here on TradingView, click this little clock icon, and it should say active. Okay. Now, to turn off your alert, you're going to have to physically go in this right hand side and press the pause. Maybe you don't want it to play overnight. If there's new setups overnight, you don't want your phone or emails going off, you can pause it. And then when you wake up, you have to manually go back here and press restart. Say you're sick and tired of the alerts altogether. You want to press this trash icon where it says delete, and then your alert is gone. To re-add it, you simply go back to the left-hand side. Well, first, you're going to want to make sure that this is checked right here, trigger alert on valid setup. You press OK. Click these 3 dots again, press add alert on TnS. Same as chart, whatever time frame you're on is the time frame your alerts will show on. And you can customize the message, whatever you want. Maybe you want to say 5-minute TnS again, since we're on the 5-minute. Press create. And it should be there, and it should say active, meaning everything is working smooth. Right now, though, there's no setup, so it's not going to ping anything yet. But if there's a valid setup, it will send you an alert. Now, that's just for the 5-minute. Say you wanted 1-minute alerts as well. You can have multiple alerts at the same time. So now I'm on the 1-minute chart. Say I want 1-minute alerts. I'm going to first make sure that this is still checked. It is. I'm going to press these 3 dots, press add alert on TnS. And now you can see it says same as chart 1 minute. Once again, say last second, maybe I wanted it on 3-minute instead. I can change this to 3-minute, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it as same as chart. Go over here to messages. Instead of this random string of code, I'm going to type in 1-minute TnS. Now, before I do that, I do want to highlight, it does say 35 here. That's because I'm not on the 1-minute TnS preset. You want to make sure that you're on the 1-minute preset. because otherwise it's going to still send you alerts using the wrong stop loss. So if I'm on the 1 minute TnS, I want to make sure this 1 minute preset is checked, this alert trigger is checked, and then press OK, then add alert on TnS. You can still see it says 35. That's simply a TradingView error. But to double check that you have the 1 minute stop loss before you add the alert on, you want to double check that you have the preset checked. This also checked where it says trigger alert, and then you want to press the 3 dots, add alert, and now it's going to be there with the 25-point stop loss. It just says 35. In your messages, you can change this now to 1 minute TnS, press create, and now we have both the 1 minute TnS and 5 minute TnS alert set up. Whenever there's a 1 minute setup, it's going to send us an alert. Whenever there's a 5 minute setup, it's going to send us an alert. If there's 2 setups at the same time, we're going to get 2 alerts. Simple as that. And if I get sick of one of them, I'm going to press pause. That means now I'm only showing the 5 minute. If I'm sick of both, I press pause. Now it's gone. If I want to delete them, you press delete here. Okay. That is the only way to get rid of alerts. You have to simply press pause or delete. Just from you going to settings here and unchecking this will not turn off the alert. It's still going to keep going. So you have to manually go on this right hand side and press either pause or delete. And if you're ready to start it back up again, you press restart. It's going to say active. That means it's working. And so that was pretty much it for the new features for the TnS indicator. Everything else beneath this alerts box is the same old, pretty much. It's our appearance. And so let me just show you an example. We'll use the 5 minute here. For example, our appearance right now, we have the FEG colors you can change. Say I want a blue FEG color, and you can see now it's changed to blue. I'm just going to change it back to green. Actually, I'll revert back to the default settings. This is what the table would look like when you first open it up. Remember, that's the first thing I changed was the table. We'll get to that in a second as well. But for now, the TP line, you can change that as well. You can see right now, you can barely even see the TP line. It's actually right here where I'm hovering my mouse over, but you can barely see it. To make that a bit more visible, you want to change the width to what I recommend is 3. You can see it makes it just slightly better to see. Maybe you still can't see it. Just know that if you up it past 3, it's going to actually make it a bit too wide. And what I mean by that is if I press OK, you can see it's a little bit easier to see now. However, this will now take up 2 ticks, which means you may think that it's going to hit your TP, but it really hasn't because you just have your settings as a wider TP. So it's going to look like it may be a hit, but maybe we missed it by a tick. Okay. But once again, 3 is the cutoff for that. So if you have it at 3, then that means it's not going to take up more than its actual price that it has listed. Now, once again, I recommend 3, and say you still can't see that. Maybe you want the line to be more visible. You want to scroll down to where it says extend and lines. I'm going to change this to about 7. You can see it made the line just a little bit longer, so now we can actually see it. And also the entry line is also longer as well. But anyways, moving back to the entry line, all this is fully customizable. You can change the entry lines to dotted lines or a solid line, whichever your preference is. It's all fully customizable. And of course, you can change that to a little bit thicker as well if you really wanted to. Just remember, if you go past 3, you may get confused and feel like something is being tagged in when really it's not. You can see this is a lot easier to see, but however, the line itself covers 2 ticks where you may think a price is getting tagged in. It may miss it by a tick. So please be aware, if you have it any more than 3 for the width options, then it will be covering more than 2 ticks of your screen. And so everything else is kind of self-explanatory. Bullish setup marker, that simply is your TP line. You can kind of customize that whatever color you want as well. Actually, no, this is the table, sorry. So for the table, if you wanted it something other than green, the stock color for a bullish setup, you can change the color as well. And so once again, you probably can't really see that too well. All you simply do is move down to the info table section, text size, change this to what I recommend is large, or whatever size you want. Maybe you want it huge. In my opinion, it takes up a bit too much of the screen, but I recommend large. And you can also change the background color of that as well. Any color you want. Say you like some bright colors so it's easier to see. You can change that as well. All fully customizable. Maybe you don't even want it in the top right corner. Maybe you want it in the bottom left corner of your screen, because maybe you have some other indicator already there. You can see it's now in the bottom left of my screen. It does kind of get overshadowed by the candles at times, so maybe you don't want it exactly there. Maybe you want it in the middle. You can have it right in the middle of your screen at the bottom. You can have it at the top in the middle if you wanted to, but the default option is the top right. And so this very last input values, please do not change that. Keep that as it is checked. And now moving on to the final part of the indicator. Style, don't change anything here, but visibility is the final thing I want to go over, because by default, TnS will show up on all time frames, okay? What that means is if there's a setup on the 15-minute, for example, say I go to the 15-minute, you can see there's a 15-minute FVG. TnS was really made for the 5-minute. Now we use it on the 1-minute, but really it was made for the 5-minute. So truly, you shouldn't really be using on the 15, but just say, maybe you don't want to see on the 15. Here's where the visibility comes into play. What you want to do is say I only want to see it on the 5-minute only. You want to uncheck all of these except for the minutes option. Change this left side to 5, change the right side to 6. What this does is it's only going to show TnS on the 5-minute time frame, and you press OK. You can see it's gone now. And how can I confirm that it's only going to show up on the 5-minute? Well, you just go to the 5-minute time frame. You can see there's a setup there on the 5-minute, and the TnS indicator is there. If I go back to the 15-minute, it's a little gray eye with it crossed out. That means it's not going to show up on this time frame. If I go down to the 1-minute now, there's no setup here. It's also that orange little icon with the crossed out. That means it's not there. Say I wanted to show TnS on the 1-minute up to the 5-minute. Well, simply all you have to do is change this left side to 1, keep the right side at 6. What this means, it's going to show me TnS trades on the 1-minute all the way up to the 6-minute time frame, which is really just the 5. So you wanted to see the second chart as well. Maybe you only want the 30-second. Well, you can change this side to 30, this right side to 31, and now you can also see TnS on the 30-second using the 1-minute settings for TnS. Go back to inputs and you press 1-minute preset. If there was a 30-second setup, we would also be able to see it here. Let's back up to maybe when there was a setup. Yeah, back here, you can see there's a setup now showing up on the 30-second. And if I uncheck that visibility, it's no longer there once again. And so please don't forget, guys, when you're on the 1-minute, you have to have that preset on, because it's going to have a 35-point stop loss on the 1-minute unless you have this checked. So you really want to have this checked. If you're on the 1-minute TnS, it's going to give you the TnS 1-minute settings that I recommend for everybody. And speaking of the settings that I recommend, let's jump into that right now. So what I recommend for the 1-minute TnS settings is for you to have a 0.25 minimum R filter. What this means is that it's going to show you negative R setups, okay? Now, the thing about 1-minute TnS, there are lots of negative R setups that do get TP. I recommend having it at 0.25 because that way you'll still be able to see them. You can simply just decide if you actually want to take a trade. So let's go back and find an example. So for example, we have a short setup here. Let me change the style back to dotted because I like the entry to be actually dashed with one width. That looks a lot better to me. We'll get back into that in a second. Say, for example, you have this minimum R filter on 0.25, like I'm recommending. You will see this setup. You can see it's for 17 points. 17 points on the 1-minute, so that's not too bad. But you're still risking 25 points, right? Because our 1-minute preset is on. If your 1-minute preset is not on, you're going to be risking 35 points because by default, it's set to the 5-minute TnS. And you can see it ruins the risk to reward there. It's like 0.4 now. But once again, you want to have the 1-minute preset on when you're on the 1-minute time frame. It just makes sense. But say we had this filter on the 1, which is on by default, right? So we have our risk to reward setting on 1. You can see the setup is no longer there. However, the TP for this setup is down here, and it does get TP. That's basically a win that you miss out on because your risk to reward settings aren't there. Now, even if you do want to take higher R setups, I still recommend having this on 0.25, and you can just simply decide if you want to take the short here because it is for 19 points and it does get TP once again. That's what I recommend is 0.25, and you can just decide if you want to take a lower reward setup You can also, of course, change it to 0.5 if you want, but I recommend 0.25 so you can see every single one. And of course, I do recommend having the alerts on. Once again, I already went over how to add the alerts. You just check this box, press OK, add the 3 dots here. Now I'm in replay mode, so it doesn't really show up, but it would say add alert on TnS. And it's going to bring up that little menu to press create, and then you press, create, and it's going to show up here on the right-hand side. Now moving on to what I recommend. I don't recommend changing this at all. Just leave it disabled. It's going to show you setups basically the entire day. If you really only want to see setups from 9:30 to 4 o'clock, just press FEG validation. That's going to show you only setups on TnS from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's highly what I recommend trading TnS on, is from 9:30 to 4 o'clock p.m. For the 5-minute TnS, I recommend trading it from 9:30 to 15:30 here, or really 15:45. So on the 5-minute TnS, I recommend from 9:30 to 15:45 with the FEG validation on. Okay, and of course your 1-minute preset would be off because you're trading the 5-minute. It's up to you if you want to trade version 2. I do recommend version 2 for the 5-minute, so you would have that checked. This is what your 5-minute TnS would look like, and maybe you want to have your minimum R settings bumped up to 0.75, so that makes the trades a bit more worth it. But in my opinion, I would say 0.5 is perfectly fine for the 5-minute TnS. Once again, if you want to see every single setup, you simply change it to 0.25. And that way you can still just make your choice. Okay. But once again, version 2 is automatically checked once you press the preset. You don't have to change anything here. Even though it says it's checked here, if I unchecked it and press 1-minute preset, it's still on version 2. I can't even press it now. I can't do anything here. That's on purpose. If you have this 1-minute preset on, it has by default a 25-point stop, 3-point edge offset, and version 2 checked. Even though you can't press anything here, even though it still says 35, you can't press anything. Just by having this 1-minute preset on, you by default will be trading with the recommended 1-minute TnS settings, which is 25-point stop, 3-point edge offset, and version 2 enabled. And everything else down here is really just fully customizable. It's up to you. But I do recommend having the TP line at least at 3. Me personally, I have these both at 1. Of course, if you can't see the stop loss, you can widen it to 3. But remember, if you go anything past 3, it's going to make your lines more than 1 tick, or basically more than the actual price that you have listed, because then it's going to be a visual mistake when you feel like a trade is going to be tagged in, but it really hasn't been actually tagged in the exact price because you have your stuff basically at like 5. It's going to be more than 1 tick. But yeah, guys, let me know how TnS works for you. And if you have any other questions for this indicator, please leave them in the comments below. And yeah, guys, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.